Well, here we are on Thursday, right? It's got back from being gone a couple of days, and Brian is now gone. As soon as I got into town yesterday, I said, "I'm back. You're off duty," and he's like, "I'm already in California." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So be it. So, anyways, I hope you're doing well. We are in the new year, and yes, we're still in the season of Christmas. And I'm going to tell you that that's why you had the opening like that this weekend. You're going to have that same Christmas opening because it is literally Saturday night, the 11th day of Christmas, Sunday, the 12th day of Christmas. Monday, as liturgical calendar goes, is always January 6th, is always Epiphany. And Epiphany has a couple of things in it. One is that is the traditional kind of time we remember the wise men appearing in the liturgical calendar, as well as the presentation of Jesus. And that if you're not familiar with that, when Jesus was presented at the temple on, I forget whatever day that is after you're born, it was a typical thing for firstborn males to be presented at the temple. And in that moment, two people, Simeon and Anna, both recognize Jesus as the Messiah. So it's kind of the epiphany moment or the aha moment. And so the presentation also goes with that epiphany, that aha moment. And then the following week, which, so not this weekend, but a week from now, which Pastor Brian's going to preach on, is always the first Sunday after Epiphany is always the baptism of Jesus, which I know it kind of feels like you jump from Jesus being a week old to boom, he's 30 and all of a sudden things are rolling. But kind of on the church calendar, we don't necessarily recognize it every year, but this year we'll take a moment to recognize that moment when Jesus appears at the Jordan River, and then John the Baptist baptizes Jesus, not for Jesus' sake, but for our sake. And then you kind of roll until Lent begins, which this year it's the first weekend in March, or first Wednesday in March is Ash Wednesday. And the reason it floats is it has everything to do with we follow the Jewish lunar calendar for Easter. So, and that does not line up with our Western calendar. And so sometimes it's later, sometimes it's earlier. And this year we roll all the way until March before we get into Lent. So we kind of got a few things going and was brainstorming a few sermon series for this year already. And I'm not ready to reveal them yet, but working on some things for us to think about and some things that have never been preached on, at least in the last 5 years since I've been here, because I always try to bring to you parts of the Bible that we haven't explored. And of course, there are things that overlay and you kind of come back to, but there's something that we haven't explored yet together as a church family. So I think we're going to be doing that here near the end of January, and then we'll see where life takes us. But on Monday, but let me back up. Because as you know, we pre-recorded Tuesday's broadcast on Sunday after church. So we did church on Sunday. We came in here and pre-recorded Tuesday so that everybody could kind of be off and quiet on Tuesday. And so that's why I was in Tuesday's broadcast, even though I wasn't technically here. And then, but after that broadcast, we had a fifth Sunday. And I mean, it's like my life has been like on the run, right? Like, oh yeah, we did church and then we did a broadcast and then we had fifth Sunday and then I went to the Grand Canyon and then now I'm back and now I'm at another broadcast and the year ended and we're doing financials. And I got to write a sermon for Saturday and Sunday. That's my life. So we got out of the broadcast that we recorded, and we had this amazing fifth Sunday. They're all great. I don't want anybody throwing tomatoes at me from inside the room. But this one focused in on all of the God-given talent that we have within Community Lutheran Church. So in other words, all the performers, all the singers, and obviously Philip and Keith, who were playing, and Robbie too. He played and sang. But we used folks who sing in the choir, sing at church on Sundays, either at 11 o'clock or 9:30. And we had this amazing lineup of our own folks. And honestly, for me, it was a lot of fun seeing our own people put out this beautiful, kind of tapestry of music, from kind of torchlight music to Ain't No Mountain High Enough to, there was a little kind of, it was almost kind of a jazz trio with Aaron Fuller and Robbie and Ashley and Keith played on that one. And so there was a little jazz trio with saxophone and acoustic guitar and piano. I mean, that was pretty cool. And Tim Searcy sang for us, and Jackie sang for us, and Martha sang. I mean, like, just boom, boom, boom. And even Robbie's daughter sang. And I take the credit on that because I baptized her. So that was me. No. But we just had this really wonderful lineup, and I didn't get to talk to everybody afterwards, but one of the people that I did get to talk to was Tim, and I was like, Tim, that is just amazing work that you did, and he's done special music for us on Sundays too, and also some of the stuff from our KCLC sermon series that we do in the summer. He's done songs there. I mean, it's just, overall, it was just a really great moment on Sunday afternoon, and in a lot of ways, like, that's a great way to end the year. Here at Community Lutheran Church, it was the last official thing on our calendar as we wrapped up the year, and we got to share music from within our own church family. So if you didn't get to see it, take my word for it, it was fantastic. And then on Monday, my life was getting ready to go to Williams, Arizona. So I got up in the morning, got packed, and then my mother-in-law was still here. So what we ended up doing is driving in tandem all the way to Kingman. So I had Rachel driving her mom to Kingman so her drive wouldn't be as long. And then in Kingman, we stopped for gas and sent Mima, that's what we call her. We sent Mima on to Peoria, where she lives, because she would get off at the Wickenburg Wickiup exit, where we kept going east on 40. So Monday night we spent in Williams, and we had a nice dinner in Williams on Monday night. Tuesday then, in the morning, we had to get up early, and we took this train that runs from Williams up to the Grand Canyon. It's a 2-hour train ride. Even though it's an hour drive, the train doesn't go, it's not a bullet train. It's not going 200 miles an hour, right? It's only going 40 miles an hour. So we took this lazy trip up there, and then we had about 4 hours before the return trip. But I put up some pictures, and I'm wondering if I could show some of these pictures that I took at the Grand Canyon. So that is just this one area at the South Rim where the train terminates, and there is the El Tovar Hotel and other hotels and buildings, all national parks right there. And so stop right there for a second. This is inside a building that was designed and built by a woman by the name of M.G. Coulter. And this was built in about 1900. And I didn't take a picture of the outside, so I'll get to this picture, but just let's hold here. She was not able to find work because people didn't hire women to design and build buildings. And so she changed her name to use her initials. When she sent in a resume, they hired her and then found out she was a woman. But since they already said, okay, well, you're up here, go ahead and do it. And this is a stone building on the outside. And And then on the inside, obviously it's adobe. And what if you look at the top of the picture, what you see is the original inside rafters of the roof, which are obviously it's all wood and stick construction above. And this is on the second floor of this Hopi house. And this is in the back of the second floor where there is a stairwell that is not to be used by the general public, but I caught a glimpse of original Hopi art that was painted on the stairwell wall back in 1905, 1910, somewhere in there. And since then, they framed it and put glass over it. But it was so cool. I'm a child of the '80s. Sorry, to see this indigenous artwork from the turn of the century that they've went ahead and protected. And it was so amazing that I was like, I just got to capture a picture of this. And so I just love the picture of this stairwell with that original Hopi art that was painted at some point early on when this was built. Okay, let's move on to the next picture. So outside of one of the art galleries, which is right on the cliff face, I walk up and see a verse from Psalm 107, and obviously, and a prayer, and most of it's there. A little bit was scratched out at the bottom, but I saw that and I knew I had to get a picture of it because it absolutely captures the feeling of being on the edge of this huge chasm it's way bigger than, I mean, if you've been there, but if you haven't, it's just so big that you can't fathom how big this is. And all you're seeing in this one area is one small part of the Grand Canyon. You're not seeing all of it, that you're just seeing one little bit. And so, O Lord, how manifold are thy works. In wisdom hast thou made them all, and the earth is full of thy riches. And when you look out, you see that. And this was attached to this building as it's overlooking part of the Grand Canyon, carved by the Colorado River over millions of years. And I was like, yep, that says it. So let's go to the next. So here are, on the left is one side of the canyon that was closest to that building. That building was the one that had the sign on it as you walked in. And then I went inside and we were looking around and there were some windows and I just had to take a picture of the window overlooking the canyon. And yes, in the lower right-hand corner, that is the hair of Rachel Berggren as she was looking at something below the window. But it's just, you just see this and you go, you literally ask yourself, being in the presence of the Grand Canyon, go, could this possibly be real? That's how amazing this is. And so if you go back to the first picture, if we could, I have no idea like how far across that is. But it's 20 miles or something like that. I mean, it's just unbelievable. As far as the eye can see is this canyon. And they told us that one of the trails called the Bright Angel Trail there that goes down to the floor of the Grand Canyon is an 8-mile walk down just to get to the bottom of the canyon. And obviously, once you get to the bottom, unless you plan on living there, it's an 8-mile trek back up and at a pretty high incline. So we declined to hike that trail all the way down to the floor of the Grand Canyon. And on top of that, where this picture was taken, you're at like 7,500 feet in elevation, which is, about 6,000 feet higher than we are here in Las Vegas. And so the air is a lot thinner, which means you get winded easy and you also can dehydrate easier. So we were drinking a ton of water. But you couldn't run a marathon out there if you're not used to it, that's for sure. And we did that, and we were there for 4 hours and took the train back. And even in the 4 hours, we A, hadn't seen enough, but B, we were tired enough that we were ready to head back to Williams for the day. And then on the train ride back, which, there was a mix of folks of ages on that train, but they gear it, since it's a 2-hour ride, they gear it for families. So there was, musicians that roamed the cars, singing songs like banjo and guitar. And then on the way back, there was a train robbery. I guess that's a part of the shtick, right? Is there's a train robbery, and it's so funny because since we had little kids in our train car, they like forewarned us because they didn't want kids crying, right? Like something special is going to happen, but it's all pretend. And then one of the conductors came through because clearly they've had issues in the past, and they said, "Do not attack the train robbers. Do not jump them. Do not trip them. Do not subdue them. This is all in good fun." Like they had to come and tell us because clearly they've had issues of someone wanting to be a hero. And it was very clear that the train robbers were actors and it was all silly. But somebody at some point took it way too seriously and tried to foil the train robbery. So the conductor had to come through and say, "I mean it. Do not attack the train robbers." So with that, we got ourselves robbed. I lost $1 to the train robber because they asked us to have money out. So gave the train robbers $1 and came back. And then on Tuesday night, we walked along the historic Route 66 in Williams, which there's shops and restaurants and stuff, had dinner, and then got up on Wednesday morning yesterday and we came home. So I was telling somebody in the office, I was gone like 36 hours, like top to bottom. But it was such an experience that it felt like I was gone longer than one full day. Traveled on Monday, traveled on Wednesday, gone one full day. That it felt like, I really got away for a little bit and of course, the biggest part of doing anything is sharing the experience with somebody you love, right? I mean, and so being with my wife was the best part of the trip, and that we got to share a new experience together. So we got to enjoy that. And then we came home, we unpacked and did the most mundane things ever. We went grocery shopping. And that was our Wednesday. We got home and we went grocery shopping, and I made carnitas for dinner. Like, that's that. So, but if you didn't know, I wasn't feeling well the week of Christmas. On Sunday before Christmas, I got to church at 7:30 like I normally do, and because Rachel's still in bed on Sunday morning that early, I don't normally talk until I get to church. And the first words out of my mouth were like croaking, like, eh. And I was like, "Oh, I'm not feeling good." And then got a little worse on Monday, and then Tuesday's Christmas Eve, Wednesday's Christmas Day, and just did not feel great. I wasn't coughing, but my head was obviously with sinus pressure and felt dizzy and lightheaded and didn't feel great. No COVID, no flu, nothing like that. And seemed to be able to hold it together because everybody said that the messages on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day made sense and they weren't nonsensical. So clearly I got through preaching, and even last Sunday was still a little bit off, but finally back to normal, which I'm very thankful for. And clearly not contagious because Rachel has been healthy the whole time. So, but feeling better, and we crossed into this new year, and we don't know what the new year will bring for any of us. But as I said the other day, the important part is how we do life together. And that we have this gift of a church family in which we can lean on one another, we can find peace and even an escape at times from the world when we gather here for worship. because we're really in our own environment when we show up on a Saturday or a Sunday or even other events that we get in here and it's almost like nothing else matters than what's happening in that moment. And so through the ups and downs of whatever 2025 will bring, this house here will be a place of refuge and solace and a place to reorient ourselves for what is happening out there. I mean, obviously, in the last day, we saw the news of what happened in New Orleans, which is ugly and brutal and nonsensical, and anything violent like that, whatever the cause, is denounced. And there's no room for that in the world. And then, whatever we'll hear news about what happened here in town with a car that exploded, once again, another loss of life. And, we'll find out why, I'm sure, later. But once again, not needed, not a part of our Christian walk. And so as we need to kind of make sense of a chaotic world, this is the place, even if we don't have answers, the place where we can breathe and find our grounding in something bigger and more important and greater and a greater reality than, life out in the world. And so, you guys keep me sane in a world that sometimes seems out of control. So that's why, every morning that I get up and I'm coming here, I always look forward to being at church, even during the week, so that because it's just a place of safety and sanity for me to be here among God's people, working and doing stuff for you and being together. And I think that's important. Now, today, picked a song that Robbie did at one of our Advent worships at our noon worship during the 3 Wednesdays that we had together. But he also did it at the 5th Sunday. And he really did a beautiful job of this song. And it is Christmas themed, but it's certainly a song of the season with a very deep message that I want to talk about when we come back. But I really like this song, but it's a non-traditional song in the sense that it's not Silent Night, it's not Joy to the World, it's not Angels We Have Heard on High, but it has a message for us. And so let's go back to Sunday afternoon at the 5th Sunday Cabaret to hear Robbie Wingfield.
Sits on the yellow line. William the angel, stuck in the middle of the road, staring out at his broken wing. He sheds a couple of tears, says, I haven't seen my friends, St. Paul or St. Peter, in 15 years. William the angel sits on the yellow line. Says, God, are you crazy? These humans seem a waste of my time. Well, I've flown around the world, seen many a things, the victories and struggles they hear. And I tell them of your love, how you watch, how you listen. They no longer seem to care. This is my prayer before you return me to heaven. Let my wing be repaired. Send me to Tokyo, Beirut, or London. It doesn't matter to me. I did what I was told. Still, I'd like to save one soul. William the angel stands on the yellow line. There's now a state trooper wondering what's on his mind. Well, I've seen both death and destruction, sir, the cruelty of nature in a man. But when God points left, man wanders right, follows his own plan. William the angel walks the straight yellow line. William the angel says the answers can be simple sometimes. Well, consider the smile in a baby's eyes as it's wrapped in its mother's arms. Consider the sound and the look of the sky after a violent storm. You've been forewarned before he returns me to heaven. Sir, I'd like to move on to New York, Toronto, or Berlin, or even the back of your car. Peace and joy are cliches, I know. Still, I'd like to save one soul. William the angel sits on the side of the road. The trooper says, be careful, haven't you got somewhere to go? William says, no, I'll just stay here and wait, while pointing to the remains of his wing. He is offered a ride, but says thank you, no thank you, I'm an angel to a king. This is what I sing before you return me to heaven. May you fix my wing, send me to Mexico City or Cape Town. It doesn't matter at all. There's always hope, I was told. Still, I'd like to save one soul, just one soul. Still, I'd like to save just one soul. Thank you, friends.
Love that song. And it has within it, and I hope you heard it, this underlying break of angels we have heard on high. And it occurs to me that those places of the break in the song where you hear that through line in some ways is the undying hope that is still inside the character in the song, William the Angel. Glory to God in the highest, glory in excelsis Deo, glory to God in the highest, and peace to his people on earth. That there's this thread of this hope within that hymn that is carrying William, even in the midst of some of the hopelessness of his experience on earth. And so it goes back and forth, but I still think that interlude between the song is where his faith that he's holding on to is still there, that the angels bring good news of great joy that'll be for all the people. And then they sing, glory to God in the highest. And so I think that the musical portion of that song in some ways is as important as the words that you hear. What was unsaid also has some importance because it is what he is clinging to, or at least that's what I sense he's clinging to. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the person who wrote this song. His name is Rob Mathis. He wrote it back in 1995, and kind of wild, 1995. I don't know what you were doing in 1995. I was in seminary, and I was about, depending on what part of the year, if it was Christmas of 95, I was only about 3 weeks out from coming to Community Lutheran Church for the first time as a seminary student to see what this church was about. And it was while I was here that I got to experience this church, and it changed, obviously, the trajectory of my life if I'm here in this moment after all of those years. But maybe you were doing something in 95, but Rob Mathis wrote this, and you may have never heard of him, but it's interesting that in the music industry, he has worked with pretty much every major pop and rock performer that you could imagine, and that he does not only music writing, but also arrangements, arranging music for folks. And so if you think of a big name in the music industry, he's probably worked for them and helped them produce an album. And he was nominated for an Emmy. He has an Emmy, but he was nominated for a Tony. Sting, the guy from The Police, the British performer, he had a musical a number of years ago. Well, he helped on that and was nominated for a Tony for that musical. And so, yet he has only a couple of albums to his own name, but supports others in what they do. And this was on a Christmas album that he did, and had performed it with other at a Christmas show with people like Michael McDonald of the Doobie Brothers and other big names, that this song was within him singing it with other big names. But when I hear this song, I think about the weariness of William the Angel, which is a human experience. The weariness of wanting to do good, at least from my Christian experience. Maybe I resonate with this because of my calling as a pastor. I resonate with wanting to connect people to the divine, wanting to connect people to a greater truth than what people see in their regular lives, even my own life. And my wish is that people experience, even from a selfish point, what I experience, the goodness of God, the love of a Savior who'd come to us. I want other people to know what I know, or what I've experienced. And sometimes you feel like you're beating your head against a wall. I mean, think about over the last 5 years, where if that is my calling, which it is, within 6 months of being here, we closed down because of COVID and was not in close relational contact with very many people for a year. That will take your hopes of wanting to reach people away and damage that, right? And yes, I know we were reaching people across the United States when everybody was locked down. We had people watching us that were across the United States. I get that, but you just feel disconnected. And then you reopen, and even today, attendance is less than what it was before we closed, right? Which, by the way, every church in the United States has experienced the same thing. It's not unique to us. But from my point of view as a pastor, and you go, if my hope is to reach people and for them to experience what I know is true, that makes you weary. And so I guess I resonate with William wanting to just save one soul. I mean, in a cliche sort of way. And I get that, but he's also not willing to give up with that underlying tune, angels we have heard on high. He's still holding on to that hope. And even when the police officer says, well, I can take you somewhere, and he's like, no, I'm going to wait here, hoping for my wing to be fixed, just so that maybe I can resume my mission, even if it's just one person. And so I certainly resonate with that, and I think I've told you before, but if I haven't, on Sunday mornings when we meet as a worship staff, we go through all three services that morning, and I pray before we kind of break up and do three different services. But I always pray that people's hearts are moved, that people experience the goodness of God. It's that same hope, maybe not phrased the way William the Angel says it, but it's certainly like, if nothing else, let us be vessels so that God's love and peace and joy and truth and hope flows through the things that we will say and play and do and sing and pray, so that someone's heart's changed. Pray that every week, different ways, but I pray it every week, because honestly, that's my hope. Every week that in worship, someone will experience grace, a love, a feeling, peace where there hasn't, just anything that God is working through us. And when you sometimes in life, and you can do this in a career of any type, but certainly in mine, you go, am I doing any good? Am I making headway, or am I going backwards? Am I actually the impediment in the equation, right? And so I resonate with William because he just wants to knock on a door and have someone answer, metaphorically speaking. That Jesus is knocking on the door of our hearts, asking us to open and see what he wants to give us, right? Which, by the way, is what I'm preaching on this weekend. And yet he seems to be not finding that to be too successful. Because why? We live in a hardened world in a lot of ways. And so what might have been easy in church work in the 1950s, even with some of the issues that we did not address and should have back then, church was easier back then because people just kind of fell into line and said, well, that's what you're supposed to do, right? So today is a harder sell, if you were. And so sometimes you just go, am I doing any good out there? But we don't give up. We have that underlying tune that reminds us to keep pressing on. And we had signs of hope at Christmas time, Christmas Eve specifically. Two things as metrics go. One of them was we had more people in Christmas Eve and Christmas Day worship than we did last year. So I looked to Philip to say, we're doing something right. We had more people, and not just more of our own people. And I think that's a big thing. I want all of our church family to be together, but we had more guests here. And specifically at our 6:00 Christmas Eve service, over half of the room, from what I could tell, were not our own church family, because as a shepherd, you got to know your sheep. And there was a lot of sheep I did not recognize at 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve. And so I don't know if it was word of mouth. I don't know if it was our Facebook ads, which we did Facebook ads. Any way we can get the word out. It was the signs out at Community Lane. People driving by go, oh, they got Christmas Eve. I'm going to come. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the Spirit of God. People go into our website and say, well, I'm just going to go to church here because it's close. Makes no difference to me other than studying what works kind of from a business point of view. But whatever God did to get people here, I am thankful for it. And it was amazing to see so many people I did not know at the 6 o'clock service. Now, to back it up to our 4 o'clock service, I knew pretty much everybody in the room, or the fact that they were with somebody that we knew had family or a friend with them. So we could kind of identify everybody in the room, or, oh, you're connected to so-and-so. 6 o'clock was not the case. So God blessed us with people being brought here through various ways because God wanted them in the seat that night. And I give thanks for that. So, we did make a difference in terms of sharing the love of God in that moment. And, maybe when there's another time where they're like, I need to be in church, maybe they'll think of us, right? And that's my hope and prayer. I know we have people signed up for a new member class in just a week and a half away. We got a new member class on the 12th, and we got people signed up for that. There are signs of life, so don't hear that I'm just like, woe is me. But I certainly understand William the Angel's predicament. And sometimes we feel that way about anything in our life. And I was thinking about a couple of things that I wanted to share with you before I wrap up today. First, from Paul, as he's writing to the church in Galatia, and I like this one because it is a reminder to me. And he says to them, and it's near the end of the letter, he says to them, like, do not become weary in doing good, because guess what? We all get weary sometimes. Do not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we don't give up. William the Angel and Song doesn't give up. He's pretty weary, but he's still holding on. And so whatever we're going through, and you just say, well, the heck with it, I'm going to live like everybody else. Paul reminds us, like, don't, just hold on. We will eventually reap that harvest. And, and who knows? It may be one of those things that I have to wait, for me personally, I have to wait to get to heaven before people will come to me and say, 40 years ago, you did this thing or you said this thing, and it made all the difference in my life. I may not know that until the end. And I have to be okay with that. And so let us not become weary in doing good. One day there will be a harvest for that. And it may take a long time before we see that, but that keeps us going. Also, love this verse from Peter. So Peter writes a letter to the Christian church, and he writes two of them that we have in the Bible, in the New Testament. And in 1 Peter, so his first letter, I love this verse because it is true, and I occasionally pull this out when people talk about sharing their faith or talking about faith things. But this is what he says. He says, always be prepared to give, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks and to give the reason for the hope that you have. So in other words, he says, like, just always be ready. If somebody asks you, like, why do you live different, or why do you have so much joy, or why are you so kind? He says, always be ready to give an answer for the reason for the hope that you have. And then he says this, but do it with gentleness and respect. There's a whole lot of Christians out there who do everything but that last thing. Gentleness and respect. You know what? Like you're ready to somehow put another notch in your belt for I saved a soul, and I presented the gospel, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, there's a time and place for that. But when somebody says, how do you live life? And you can tell them without trying to force it down their throat. I mean, I actually used the term with Philip earlier today. It's like, We're not asking anybody to drink the Kool-Aid around here, right? Like our lifestyle and how we live should be attractive without coercion. like just come hang out with us, right? And if you're attracted to how we live life, well, then you can come do life with us. But there's no like, secret oath and, now drink the Bobcat blood before you become one of us, right? Like, and don't tell anybody about like just we are who we are, and there's always room at our table. There's always room. There's always an extra chair available, right? And so living life in such a way that people are drawn to that and doing it with gentleness and respect, and it's okay if people aren't in that place, and you can honor them in their journey, which also makes a difference in their life because they'll remember that. And that's the great thing about our Fifth Sundays is we have people from all walks of faith and no faith, and we just welcome and we just love on them. And I had this person who we had somebody who was here for the first Fifth Sunday ever. And we always have a few of those folks. And I was talking to them before the show, and they said to me, because I think they're pretty spiritually sensitive. And the reason I say that is they said, this place has a vibe to it. There's an energy here. Like there's something about being in this room and inside this church, and they're not Lutheran, they're not Christian. And I said, yep. And I said, there is something about this place. And I said, and I am the one who is going to champion that welcome and that joy and that love that's for all people, and not just, oh, if you belong here. I'm like, yeah, there is an energy to this place, and I'm the keeper of that, and make sure that we keep doing that. But they felt it, and that was the first time they've ever been in our building, and the first time they were about to experience a Fifth Sunday cabaret, and they felt it. And I said, yeah, that's who we are, and that's who we're going to be. And so, live your lifestyle, not force doctrine down people's throats. There's a time when people will crave to learn. And then in that moment, when people are craving to learn kind of a deeper level, then you can say, well, I live like this, but here's what underpins it. And then they're ready for that. But it's not what you lead with, gentleness and respect. And then finally, we'll close with this, 2 Timothy. So Paul writes to his protege. Paul knows his time on earth is limited. He knows that the Christians are being persecuted, and he's like, I got to raise up another leader. And so he's kind of pouring his knowledge and wisdom into this guy named Timothy. And he says this to Timothy in chapter 4 of the second letter he writes. He says, preach the word, be prepared in season and out of season, correct, rebuke, and encourage with great patience and careful instruction. So he's like, Timothy, wherever you're at, you just got to be ready. It's like, you don't need to jump on anybody, but you just got to be ready. In other words, I guess in season, out season is this for me. In season is when I'm at church. Out of season is when I'm at Vons, or I'm at Target, or I'm at Walmart. And hopefully if you run into me at any of those places, you don't go, who is that? That's not who I know at church. Like, I want to be the same person in season here as I am out of season, at home, out in the community, getting my oil changed. I want to be the same person in season and out of season, to be that consistent person I want to be consistent. I don't want to be erratic. And, that's what I told Brian about my New Year's resolution. It's like, I don't really have a resolution other than to be consistently the same person wherever I'm at. And, I think that, so far hasn't let me down too much. So I want to continue living a consistent life in season and out of season. But if you're in a place like William, the angel in the song, and you got a broken wing, and you're still wondering, like, does anybody care out there? Should I continue on? The answer is yes. He didn't give up. I'm not going to give up. I know Pastor Brian, he's off, but he's not going to give up. that our entire staff is not going to give up. We're going to keep doing the things that we're doing because we know, even if we don't hear about it, we know we're making a difference in someone's life at a very crucial moment that we may not even know about. So keep fighting the good fight, folks. Love you. Happy New Year to you. And we will see you this weekend, whether it's Saturday night at 5, Sunday morning, 8, 9:30, 11. We'd love to have you join us either online or in person. And then we'll be back here next Tuesday for our next broadcast. But we love you. Take care. God bless you. And Philip, will you play us out?